Hello students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello everybody and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We continue with our Early America series by looking at growing resentment against Britain. Don't forget to check in the description for a fill-in-the-blanks worksheet that can be assigned with this video. Okay, let's go. By 1763, Britain controlled most of North America east of the Mississippi River. American Indians within this region feared the encroachment of British settlers onto their lands. In May 1763, the Ottawa leader, Pontiac, attacked British forts and settlements. Hundreds of British were tortured and killed, and Britain retaliated. When they learned that the French had signed the Treaty of Paris, American Indian nations stopped fighting and returned home. To avoid more conflicts, Britain issued the Proclamation of 1763. It drew a metaphorical line in the sand and prohibited colonial settlements west of the Appalachian Mountains. It also ordered any colonial that had already settled west of the medical line to move back east, making any land grants they had received worthless. Many colonists felt the ban violated their right to live where they pleased, especially since they had helped Britain win the French and Indian War. The ban was largely ignored. Britain was deeply in debt from the 7 Years' War, of which the French and Indian War had been part. The Prime Minister, George Grenville, felt that the colonials had benefited most from the war and should share the cost of the war, so he began to impose new taxes. Among them was the sugar tax, which put an import tax on several products, including molasses. Colonists protested, saying that Grenville did not have the right to raise these new taxes. In 1765, Parliament passed the Stamp Act. This required colonists to buy special tax stamps to put on certain items, including diplomas, newspapers, and legal documents, even dice. The colonists responded in anger, rioting in several cities, and declaring that because the colonies had no representatives in Parliament, the British government had no right to tax them. No taxation without representation. Finally, colonial delegates sent a petition demanding an end to the Stamp Act, and many colonists took part in a boycott of British goods. Eventually, Parliament repealed the Stamp Act, but it passed a law stating that Parliament had the right to raise taxes in the colonies. In 1767, Parliament passed the Townshend Acts, which taxed goods such as glass, paper, paint, lead, and tea. To enforce these taxes, as well as to find smuggled goods, customs officers used writs of assistance. These legal documents allowed customs officers to search people and properties without saying what they were looking for and seize anything without giving a reason. In response, the colonists organized boycotts of British goods. Some formed protest groups, such as the Sons of Liberty and the Daughters of Liberty. Especially influential among the colonists were cousins Sam and John Adams, John's wife Abigail Adams, Mercy Otis Warren of Massachusetts, and George Washington and Patrick Henry of Virginia. They were not alone. The New York Assembly protested so strongly against the Quartering Act that it was dissolved by British leaders. A crowd of Boston protesters was fired on by a small group of soldiers in Boston, killing 5 citizens. Defended by John Adams, the soldiers that committed this so-called Boston Massacre got away with light punishments. You see, even though John Adams was a patriot, he felt that everyone is entitled to a fair defense. Samuel Adams established a committee of correspondence in Massachusetts to write letters and pamphlets that would keep other colonists informed. Soon, other colonies set up committees which helped to unite the colonies. Colonists were more closely tied to each other than to Britain. The protests and boycotts pressured Parliament to repeal the Townshend Acts, although taxes on tea remained. Okay, recap time. Native Americans were tired of colonials being greedy with their land, so Pontiac organized a rebellion. Britain retaliated, but felt that they needed to ease the tension. The Proclamation of 1763 proclaimed that all land west of the Appalachians was off-limits and reserved for the Native Americans. It was mostly ignored. Britain was in massive debt, and back then, countries paid their debts. The colonials benefited from the expensive war, so they should help pay for the expensive war. Townshend Acts, Stamp Act. The colonials started throwing tantrums, no taxation without representation. One tantrum resulted in a quote-unquote massacre. Most taxes were eventually repealed by Parliament, but the taxes on tea remained. Let's party, and that is growing resentment against Breton Nutshelled. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. Go nuts on the like and subscribe buttons. Do you think that the tantrums were justified? Let us know in the comments below.